Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Hare Krishna Project podcast. This is episode number 173. Yes, we have made it to our 173rd episode without being struck off air, without receiving any letters in the post. Um, um, Thank you to everyone who continues to tune in and who has been tuning in now for several years. We have an ever growing global audience. Do not forget, if you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button so you can be kept updated about future podcasts and video productions from the Hare Krishna Project. And or if you're watching this on Facebook, which is the other platform where you can watch these podcasts, if you haven't already, please do like or follow the Hare Krishna Project Facebook page, because you can be kept updated about the podcasts that we produce and all the other things that we do as well. As you know, as well as this podcast, as wonderful as it is, we also do other things as well. We do book distribution, we organize Hare Krishna festivals, we do a lot of community engagement work. And many of you will have seen that last week I went to meet members of the Unification Church. What an experience that was. Turning up and telling them I was a Hare Krishna was just a whole wild conversation. But anyway, we are very active and we are keen to share Bhakti Yoga with ordinary, everyday people. Okay, episode 173. I'm One of the things I love about this podcast is I get to virtually travel around the world and meet some fascinating people. This has been a great privilege for me. This is a great savor for me just to virtually get out there and meet so many people. And I believe we're going to have another fascinating conversation today with our guest. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Malini Devi Dasi as our guest this week. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, so nice to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
It's great to have you with us. I'm really excited about our conversation. Um, Before we started recording, I was just sharing with Molini that thanks to Facebook, I've known of her existence for some time because you can see so many things on the internet and uh, connect with people in different ways. And Malini got in touch with me recently about wanting to share her story. And of course, I jumped at the chance because I've seen a bit of Malini's story on the internet, and I hope well, I'm sure it's a story we're all going to be enthused by. Okay. Malini, the first question is the first question that every guest gets just to warm them up if you need warming up. So please tell us a little bit about you and where you are from.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for introducing me. So, I took birth in France, not so long, far away from you, in around Lyon. And I took birth in a secular family where we, it was common to speak about religion and not so much about God, and there was an openness about religion. Like my father grew up in Morocco and he studied Arabic, so he had a lot of Muslim friends, and I was always fascinated by all the varieties of spirituality of people. And I remember one thing that really marked my childhood is how much attraction I had for nuns. In France, you have nuns in the street, way more. In America, there is no nuns around. And I was always so fascinated by them, so fascinated that I could see they had a different life, that their life was different, that they had made different choices. And I was very attracted by the nun. I'm not sure where to go, but most of my life, I was philosophically inclined. I always loved philosophy. Of course, when I was younger, it was about remaking the world, transforming the world, making it a better place, wondering about the sky and the planets, I remember I had a friend, we were very, very close, and we'll go on long bicycle ride and we'll just lay down and look at the sky and then try to speculate about the creation of it all. And as I grew up, I kind of had a sense that I didn't want to be like my parents. I wanted to be something else, to do something else. And I was very, very attracted by traveling. I love traveling. And for many years, I was traveling around Europe during vacation time. And then one day I left. I just left everything behind me. I decided I'm going. And I remember very clearly that my desire to travel was not about tourism. It was not even about finding beautiful places. It was really about understanding. I wanted to know. There is something I wanted to know. I didn't know what it was I wanted to know, but I knew I wanted to know something. And I had a big love at that time, and my big love was sailing. I love sailing. I was so much, every time I would see a sailing boat, I will feel so attracted. So I left France in late 80s, and I boarded at the time in France there was the Bourse of the Équipiers, la Bourse des Équipiers. I don't know if it still exists, where people who have boats can post, and people who are looking for a boat can post too. And then there is a meeting. So I was traveling like that. I was offering my service because I was a good skipper, a good cook. I could do so many things on boats. And I left Brittany in the middle of the winter, in fact, and to sail down to Africa. And from
Wow.
Africa, I crossed the Atlantic Ocean on small boats. The Atlantic Ocean, I crossed it on a 30-foot catamaran. It was just me and another person. And like that, I traveled for about 2 years before I met some very interesting French travelers. And they were traveling for 4 years. And they started their travel from New Mayapur. That's where they were started. So their
Wow.
starting point was New Mayapur. One of them was living for a year, I think, in New Mayapur. The other one, maybe a few months. And they decided to travel the world and make music. And they were just musicians and troubadour, traveling all over the world. They were not following any of the principles. Maybe sometimes they were vegetarian, but that's it. But they had Krishna because they were traveling from one temple to another and they were doing service. And I met them in the Caribbean island, in a small island called Carriacou, next to Grenada. And I felt so attracted. I felt so attracted, like they had something I didn't have. And because I was seeking something that I didn't have, I got in contact with them and I started to travel with them and do music with them. And so we left the Caribbean islands and we sailed from the Caribbean islands to New York City. And I entered New York City the same way Srila Prabhupada entered New York City.
Wow.
Started with like the big bear with the Statue of Liberty right there and entering, we were not sober. We were not sober people. We were doing all kind of activities that were altering our consciousness, but it was something that really impacted me, the entrance in New York City by boat. And then our goal was to go to Montreal, Canada. So we went up the Hudson River, we put the mast down, and then we went up the Hudson River to the Great Lake and to arrive in Canada. And during that trip, during that sailing, it took about a month and a half to sail from the Caribbean island to Montreal. One of them started to speak to me about Krishna. And it was a person who liked partying and taking a lot of drugs, but still he started to speak to me about Krishna. And as soon as I heard about Krishna, I felt shaken at the core of my being. Like I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I just wanted to hear, tell me more, tell me more. I want to know more. And he gave me a mantra. And he didn't give me the mantra, he gave me Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I remember, when you're on a boat, you take turn to take care of the boat. The boat needs always someone awake. So I remember my time to be awake was very early morning, just the day after I received that mantra. And so as the sun was rising at the horizon, I started to chant that mantra. And I felt so exhilarated, so much energy coming around. And so we arrived in Montreal. We have scabies when you arrive. It was really adventurous, to say the least. and so we stayed at some street musician house, because we were street musician. So we stayed with street musicians. When you do boating, you're with boat people. When you're street musician, you're with street musician. That's how association happened. And I met a devotee in the street. This time, someone with shaved head and orange saffron robe, and in a sense, I made the connection, but I didn't. It was really interesting. And that devotee told me, "Why don't you come to the Sunday feast?" And on Sunday, I went to the Montreal Sunday feast. I arrived there. And it's extraordinary that I didn't see the deities. There were deities there. I don't know if you know Adam Manoir, but they are like life-size deity, black and white, black marble, big deities. The famous Vision book with a black deity that's Manoir, that's him, from Montreal. So I arrived there and, I had a good time. Probably I danced in kirtan. I remember prashad. But I remember that after we took prashad, because we were very much into doing service, as we were traveling, we didn't have any money. We didn't have I never stayed in one hotel in my 2 years of traveling. I didn't go in restaurants. I didn't have anything. And then when we were all traveling together, the four of us, we didn't have anything. But because we were doing service, people will receive us and give us lodging and give us food and give us so many things. So that was a way of traveling with nothing, like Krishna does provide. And that's something I learned during those 2 years, is that there is no need to put effort towards maintenance of the body. It's happened automatically. We are supposed to serve them. So we were. So after Prashadam on Sunday, I started sweeping the floor in a Prashadam room. You can stop me anytime you want, because I can
No,
speak.
I'm loving listening to you. I was going to ask a question which you've already answered. The question was going to be, how long were you traveling on a boat for? And you've answered that and said 2 years. I think my other, uh, I just want to try and pin things chronologically in my head. See, I'm a man, you see, so everything has to pin together in my head and be put into boxes. I think I'm just trying to, on the timeline, I'm trying to work out that you left France in the late 1980s.
Mhm.
And you personally had not met Hare Krishna devotees in France before leaving France.
Well, that's an interesting question, because that I realized later that I did, but just in retrospective. And that's part of a very important part of something I want to share, is that how Krishna knocked on our door so many times before we kind of know what we are doing. So when I was 11 years old, like I say, I was very philosophical. And I was, at that time, my parents divorced, so I was living with a very narrow-minded man that was really like, so, like criticizing Muslim in France, and this kind of person. So that was my stepdad, and and I was I was a very different kid. That the environment I was living, it was not a match, but I was attracting people to my life, and at that time I attracted some hippies. They were like in their 20s. I was 11 years old. They were in their 20s and they were fond of me. I was just a kid, but they were fond of me. So on Christmas Day, they came, and it was horrifying for my stepdad to see, well, those people with long hair and long beards and nothing traditional about them. And they came and they came to give me presents on Christmas. And so one was a Sgt. Pepper album from the Beatles. And another one was a little bottle of sandalwood oil that was Spiritual Sky with a picture of Krishna on it. It was
Wow.
1973.
Wow.
And I loved that bottle. And I remember even when it was empty, I loved that bottle. And I didn't know why I loved that bottle. It's later in retrospective, I was able to see all the Agyata Sakriti. And we all have time when Krishna came in our lives that we were not aware of. And for me, the second time Krishna came in my life that I've only realized later on was when I was 15-year-old, 1977, the year Srila Prabhupada departed this earth. I received a Bhagavad Gita. I was on my bicycle. It was summer. I was coming back from school. And then Hare Krishna devotee, I suppose, stopped me to distribute me a book, to give me a book. And I remember he wanted a donation, and I said, I don't have donation. And you can give me the book if you want. And he did. He gave me the book, even so I was not very interested. And I went home, I opened the book, I saw the squiggly, I saw the thing, and I didn't understand anything. I closed the book, and I never read that book. And maybe, but I kept that book even when I moved out of my parents' house, which is also very strange. And then another time I met the devotee was, I think it was 81 in Amsterdam. I was a traveler, and so I hitchhiked to Amsterdam because a lot of things were happening in Amsterdam. So I went to Amsterdam, and I spent a month there. And I remember on a place of down, there's a big plaza in Amsterdam, seeing a train of orange robes. It was like early 80s. Hare Krishna Maharaj, Bhagavan were big Titan ghosts. And so there was like a train of orange robes. All I remember is I just remember the cartels. That's all I do remember. But I can retrace that, okay, I had some exposure. But it was unknown to me that there was something that was attracted to me. Mm-hmm. It just only very much later on, maybe 7 years later, that I finally was fully attracted and dove into Krishna consciousness when I was in Montreal.
Wow.
So that's the
Wow.
story.
It's a fascinating story. I mean, I love how Krishna led you to Montreal in Canada, and you were traveling with these people on this boat for 2 years,
I
and
was I was traveling alone for 2 years. I met them at the
ah,
very tail end of my trip, the last month and a half, let's say, of my
wow,
trip. Yeah.
wow, wow. So what happened then when you got to Montreal? Did you then decide to live in Canada for a while? What's kind of talk a bit about what happened then when you got involved with Krishna consciousness?
Yeah. So that night at the Sunday feast, I was sweeping the floor and a young girl came. She was maybe 9 or 10, I don't know. And at that time, I was kind of feeling turned off, like, independent, traveling the world by myself. I was kind of skeptical or maybe fearful. This is a cult, whatever. But a little girl came to me and she spoke to me about Krishna. And she's the one who convinced me that there was nothing to fear. Because in my mind, I thought, if a child speaks like that and loves that kind of lifestyle, she's not trying to cheat me or abuse me or take advantage of me. It was so pure coming from that child. So the next day I came for Mongol Aarti. They told me to come for Mongol Aarti. I probably didn't go to sleep that night. So maybe at 3 a.m. I walk all the way to the temple, which was a long, because the temple in Montreal is kind of on the outskirts of Montreal. And in fact, it was a very dangerous thing to do because it's in a very bad area of Montreal. So, and that morning is very important because I went to Mongol Arti and I was alone. None of my companions came with me. And the temple commander at the time, he sat me at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada's Murti. And here I was sitting, and this Murti is the most beautiful Murti of Srila Prabhupada. And he showed me how to chant japa. He gave me beads. He gave me the mantra, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And he said, now we are doing that for 2 hours. And I sat there at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. And something very special happened. I really truly felt Srila Prabhupada's shelter, Srila Prabhupada speaking to me. I felt his presence. I felt him alive. And I was there with him. And at the end of the 2 hours, the devotee came to me and said, how was it? And I said, I took a lot of drug in my life. And I said, it was the best trip I ever took. And that was the beginning of a deep, deep intimacy and relationship with Srila Prabhupada. I have tears in my eyes because what came after that was kind of painful. So I really developed a lot of attachment to Srila Prabhupada. And I started reading his book. I started reading The Science of Self-Realization in French. I didn't speak English at the time. Oh, my English was very broken, let's say. When I was in the Caribbean islands, I learned English. My English was very rudimentary and broken. So I started to read The Science of Self-Realization, which called La Solution pour l'âge de fer en French. And then it was like coming home. I felt like, yeah, I was looking for something. Remember, I left France looking for something. I felt I found it. Finally, someone was speaking the language of my heart. It was like deeply speaking, and that person was there in a temple room, and I could speak with him, and I could relate to him. And that was the beginning of a really strong bond between Srila Prabhupada and I. And that's what is the core of my message today.
Wow. Wow.
That, yeah,
I have a
it
feeling
feels
that,
emotional for me.
yeah. I mean, we could talk in detail about the last 30 years if you want to. But I'm also keen to talk about the things that you do today. But I have a really strong feeling that your experiences amongst within the devotee community has led to the work that you do today. I mean, that's an obvious statement to make, but I really feel that. I think you probably had it. I'm assuming you've had experiences within the Hare Krishna movement that's led you to now be a fantastic listener, a healer. And I mean, that's similar to all of us. We have experiences in life that really shape us to be the people that we are today. Um, Before we talk in detail about the Bhakti Yoga retreats and the projects that you're involved with and the wonderful savers that you do you want to share anything particular from the last 20 or 30 years, perhaps within the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, that you feel that our listeners or viewers may want to hear or may benefit from? I mean, you then stayed at that ISKCON temple for a period of time, did you? Did you take initiation? Did you not? I mean, that's a broad term, initiation. You can interpret that in different ways. Maybe tell us a bit about the 90s within the movement.
He's in the 90s, yeah. So I want to continue that story because it's emotional and because, yeah, it's very emotional. So I had that from the moment I met Srila Prabhupada's Murti, from the moment I read Srila Prabhupada's books, I felt that intimate shelter, and that's that Srila Prabhupada was my savior, that he was the captain of my boat, you know. I was on boat for 2 years, so I can relate to that analogy very much, crossing the ocean of material suffering. After crossing the Atlantic Ocean, it's easy for me. I had a lot of spiritual experience during those 2 years, and maybe another time I can share them with you. But so I developed that relationship. And then it was in June, and then the Festival of India came to do the Ratha Yatra in Montreal. And in Montreal, when I came to the temple, I was the only woman there. There was 4 brahmachari living in the temple, and me, and then Grihastha living outside. And they didn't really know what to do with me. And so Madhua Prabhu is in charge of the Festival of India. He was very good friend with Jadurani. I don't know if you know Mother Jadurani. She was one of the first disciples of Srila Prabhupada. And so he told them, why don't you not send her to New York City to be trained by Mother Jadurani? You know, she seems really sincere speaking about me. Well, before I left France, I learned electronic. So when Madhua came, he had things to fix. So I fixed his microphone, and I was specialized in Wi-Fi, Hi-Fi, like high fidelity is electronic. Not electronic we have now. There was different type of electronic, but I was very good with that. So I fixed the microphone, and that's how I got in contact with the Festival of India. And that's why Madhua kind of took responsibility to speak with my temple authority and say, send her to New York. There is a woman ashram there. She can be trained by Jadurani. So I was sent there. And this is also a painful story. But when I was sent there, all I heard from my mentor, Mother Jadurani, was pastime of Srila Prabhupada, was her love for Srila Prabhupada, was Srila Prabhupada's mercy. And of course, the more you hear about a person, the more attraction you develop. That's all Krishna consciousness movement is about, hearing about Krishna for us to love him. So I was hearing about Srila Prabhupada. I already had that a very mystical experience, let's say, but an experience of feeling he's my guru. Like if you read the Bond of Love, all those women, they share. Like, yeah, I was looking for a guru and I got back to Godhead and I knew I found my gurus. They didn't have any contact with Srila Prabhupada. They didn't have any, some of them, they never had a contact with Srila Prabhupada their entire life. But they knew Srila Prabhupada is my guru. So what was true then is still true now, and it was true for me at the time. Like, yeah. So, but at the time, I was told that it wasn't the case. My heart was completely given to Srila Prabhupada. Everything, I was connecting with it. I remember one very interesting pastime that I was with Jadurani and she was doing book distribution. So I went on book distribution and I didn't know how to speak English. And I said, well, I don't know how to speak English. And she said, go ask Prabhupada to teach you how to speak English. And, I had understood that part of making advancement in spiritual life was to surrender to authority. I had understood that we learn how to surrender to Krishna by surrendering to authority. So I went to Srila Prabhupada's Murti in New York Temple, Brooklyn Temple, same temple now. And I prayed to Srila Prabhupada, I said, please, Srila Prabhupada, teach me English. And something very special happened is that we went to JFK airport to do book distribution. And I will go on book distribution and I will distribute books. And then the other Mataji's, they will see me speak with people. And so they were thinking, oh, they are speaking French. And I will think about it and say, no. They were speaking English. And somehow, when I was on book distribution, I was able to speak English. But then I will go back to the ashram, which at the time was a lot of bickering and a lot of gossip in the ashram. I couldn't speak one word. And I felt very protected in that. And then I started reading Bhagavad Gita in English, Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita in English, which I'm so blessed to have read Prabhupada Gita in English rather than a French translation. And I was a dictionary. I was just going one word at a time. Anyway, I know you want to move forward.
No,
I'm
it's
going to
fine.
move forward. That so at one point, because I went back and forth between Montreal and New York. I wasn't a New York devotee. I was a Montreal devotee. They owned me. You know, at the time, devotees were owned by the temple. So I was like a brahmacharini, given my loyalty to Montreal, but regularly I will go to spend time with Mother Jadurani in New York. And then after 6 months,
Can you just clarify for me in my head? This was probably before 1996. This was early
oh yeah, it
1990s.
was
Oh yeah.
no, late 1980s,
Yeah.
89,
Okay.
90,
Okay.
91, you know, 80, 89, 1991.
Because Jadharani's
Those
life
years changed at
Jadharani's
that
life
time.
changed quite a bit in the mid
Yeah.
90s with
Yeah. I'm very much part of that pastime too.
okay.
Like I have my side, you know, I was in Japan. She had sent me in Japan at that time. And I was doing book distribution, and I was collecting so much Lakshmi. And
Mm,
because she was my only authority, I sent everything to her. And at the time, I think it was very helpful for her to go to India and take shelter of Narayan Maharaj. The rest is history. But it's not something I will speak about today because that's not what I want to speak
mm,
about. But there
mm,
is often stories there too. But
mm,
at that time, Mozo Jadurani was in New York Temple. 89, she was in New York, and I think she was not very happy there. She was painting, and she was doing book distribution with a few of us backed in, and some devotees. Not the whole woman ashram was not really connected with her. It was kind of weird. It was a weird place. But anyway, after 6 months, because in Montreal I was cooking lunch and dinner, lunch and no, breakfast and lunch. I was cooking, and I was a Bhaktin. I started cooking 3 weeks after I joined, and I was helping at the pujari. I was doing a lot of service, and I was kind of taking more and more responsibility because it's my nature. I have some leadership qualities, so I was more and more accepting responsibility. And in 6 months after I, joined, I started to feel pressure. You need a goal. You need to be initiated. You need to be a goal. Well, I have a goal. I don't need to be initiated. I feel good. I was really feeling like that. And then more pressure came, as months came by. And then I said, okay, my goal is Mother Jadurani. Can she initiate me? At the time, I think it was Bhakta Rupa. He was temple president in New York at that time. He asked the GBC, and the GBC no, I said no, because Bhagavan had gone, and so many big people have gone and shows their true color by practicing any type of sinful activities. The movement was really shaken by the 80s, and so many things were going on. So I was told that, no, it's not a good time for us to make that decision for women to be initiating guru, whatever that is. And so I was again like, I don't want to be initiated. Srila Prabhupada, I'm fully satisfied, is my guru. And every time I would say that, I had no support. It was something that was really felt by me in my heart. But everybody else around me was basically telling me, you're in Maya. And also what I was told that was extremely painful is that by saying that I was very offensive to Srila Prabhupada, that I was offending Srila Prabhupada, that to think that I could be his disciple, that I needed to accept a guru. that, that was very bad. That's not what Srila Prabhupada wanted. Srila Prabhupada wanted me to do something else. And what I wanted to do is not acceptable. And by then, I got no knowledge that there were already other devotees around that were kind of bringing that idea to the surface. I had no contact with them. And that's special because I can stand by my experience. You may be part of one institution or one group or another group and then get affiliated with that group and kind of have the party line and not remembering why you follow that party line. And me, it's just, no, it's not the party line. It was truly my experience. It was truly my experience. So anyway, the GBC of the temple in Montreal had personal meeting with me because, I was like juicy. There was nobody who joined Montreal temple for years because of Kirtanananda, he was being big part of Montreal. And so the fall of Kirtanananda, separation from ISKCON and New Vrindavan, the whole stuff, like that. And so it was juicy, like a new Bhaktin. And within 3 months that I was in the temple, there was a Bhaktin ashram with 3 new Bhaktins, because everywhere I go, there is Bhaktin around me. I don't know why. It just happened. And it happened from the beginning. I was a Bhaktin, there was Bhaktin around me. So the pressure became stronger and stronger because, you're a Bhaktin leader, you're cooking, you're kind of, handling so many responsibility. You have to be initiated. Plus you're cooking and you shouldn't be in the kitchen touching fire. So I'm okay. I can go in the street. I love book distribution. I don't need to cook. But because I'm a good cook, they wanted me in the kitchen. So after a while, receiving a lot of pressure from a particular GBC in Montreal who wanted me to see how he's my spiritual master. But my eyes didn't see that. My heart didn't see that. My heart could only see Srila Prabhupada. Then after I surrendered, I accepted, okay, I need to accept someone. So I wrote to a devotee that I felt inspired, because it's not like I wasn't inspired by traveling sannyasis. It's not that I was not inspired by preacher in ISKCON, not at all. There was a bunch of them that I loved writing to or communicating with. But the place that I was told it needed to occupy within my heart wasn't vacant. It wasn't a vacant place. It was already occupied by Srila Prabhupada. And those beautiful devotees around, I was happy to communicate with them. So one of them I felt the most safe with. I wrote to him and I said, Dear Maharaj, I'm really attached to Srila Prabhupada and I don't really want to receive initiation from anyone. I don't have a relationship with you. I have a relationship with Srila Prabhupada and I love Srila Prabhupada, but I understand that for me to cooperate, I need to receive initiation. Will you accept me to receive an initiation? Like that. And I have the letter, I kept it. And he said, because of your attachment to Srila Prabhupada, and even so I don't know you, I'm going to accept you to receive initiation. And I kept the letter because it's there. That's what I received. And I felt seen by that person. But, sorry. So I received formal initiation, put the banana in a fire, received my name, received my beads. Mother Jadurani came. I have the picture. She's behind me. She put my nail pics on. That was really sweet. That was really nice. She was, my mentor, my guide. And at the same time, even though she was my mentor, my guide, a pure devotee, it wasn't replacing the person in my heart. Like the guru in which I have unflinching faith is Srila Prabhupada, and that didn't change. But what's happened is after my receiving formal initiation, my temple president was a very narrow-minded kind of I hope he doesn't listen to the podcast. And if he does, I'm okay with that. Like fanatic kind of brahmachari, even so he was meeting me alone quite a lot. Anyway, so he told me like now I need to chant the pranam mantra of that person. And I beg him, I said, please, can you go ask that person? I only want to chant Srila Prabhupada's pranam mantra because every time I will pronounce Srila Prabhupada's pranam mantra, my heart will melt like so, it was so special to me. And he came back and he said, no, you cannot do that. That will be very offensive and it will be offensive to Srila Prabhupada for you to do that. So for the years to follow, I play the game of the nice go person. And the person who gave me initiation, I want to say, is a very pure personality. Is a person I have a lot of admiration for. Is a person that I have a high respect for. And I'm still in communication with. So I'm not this guy, I'm not against anything.
Mm.
You
Do
understand?
you
It's not,
you don't have to do this, but do you feel comfortable sharing the name of that individual?
um,
You don't have to.
I can.
You can
I'm
tell me
wondering.
you can
Yeah,
tell me
I can tell you. He's a
privately.
very pure person. His name is Niranjana Swami. And at the time, he had maybe a handful of disciples. At the time, he was very new to taking on this responsibility of initiation.
Mm.
And we're just maybe a handful, half a dozen,
Mm.
something like that. And yeah, I was very inspired and trusting, and I'm still very inspired and trusting. I still have communication with Niranjan Swami, and I shared, in fact, that story that I just told about the pranam mantra. Years later, maybe 10 years ago, I shared that, because I was having communication with Niranjan Swami about my experience. And he said, when did I get in the way of your relationship with Srila Prabhupada? I said, Maharaj, you never did. And then, but there was one time that was very painful for me, is when I received initiation and I asked the temple president to go and ask you if I could continue to only chant Srila Prabhupada's prana mantra. You said no. And he responded, I never said that. And I trusted that's true, that it was the temple president who didn't even ask him, because that was a rule in ISKCON, so you need to do the thing according to the rule. So I knew Maharaj was telling me the truth, that he never heard that question. And it was painful because for years I felt really torn. Every time there was Guru Puja, like the lotus feet of my spiritual master is the only way by which we can achieve pure devotional service. I bow down to the lotus feet with grand reverence. In my mind, Srila Prabhupada will come. I was in front of the Prabhupada's murti. I want to say that to Prabhupada, but I'm not allowed. Really, the person I need to give it to is Niranjan Swami. And it was so confusing. And I was constantly doing like mental gymnastic in my head. It was painful. And then the most painful part, the one I can still cry about, is that because I went into that direction, that very deep connection I had with Srila Prabhupada, something happened to it. I lost touch with it. Because I play the game like God sister, God brother, family, daddy, like all that thing. And I think a part of me was honestly going to it. I wasn't faking for it, but it kind of, in order to fit in what I felt, I was told was Srila Prabhupada's movement. And years later, I finally gave myself permission to be true to my heart. That the person in my heart, the person I'm preaching first in, the Yasya Devi Tata Guru person in my life, the one I receive all Devi Agyan Ride Prakashito, the one who gave me Devi Agyan through his books, through his presence, to his class, to the response to my prayer is Srila Prabhupada.
Mm.
And now I have lived by that knowledge and that give myself permission in that way for the last 22 years, 23 years. And I cannot say that my spiritual life has been stagnant or stifled by that. Not at all. And I feel really happy. And I feel happy and my relationship with Niranjan Swami is beautiful. I love my relationship with Niranjan Swami. So I'm going to stop here because that was my main message. Because I want people who have my experience to give themselves permission. If Prabhupada is in your heart, if what you feel is a full attraction, because it doesn't make sense to me. People come to Prabhupada's movement, read Srila Prabhupada's books, feel attached to Prabhupada, and they're told, you need to find a guru. So many of the young women who come to our ashram, they share that. I say, well, according to the philosophy, in order to be able to chant Hare Krishna and make advancements in spiritual life, you need to be under the shelter of the Guru. This is not going to happen until and unless you receive the mercy of the Guru. No one can chant Hare Krishna. No one can practice Krishna consciousness without receiving the mercy of a guru. So if you are here chanting Hare Krishna, if you are here practicing Krishna consciousness, if you are here learning the philosophy, following the four regulative principles, you are under the shelter of the guru. You are receiving the mercy of the guru. And your quest is to know who that guru is. And if you're really honest, you will see this is Srila Prabhupada. And I'm not saying that at one point there is not someone who will take that place in your heart, but not something that it need to be artificially forced on you.
Mm.
Give yourself permission.
Mm.
That's
Thank you
my
for
message.
thank you for sharing that. And one important thing I want to say is that I can tell that you're happy. You come across as very happy. Uh, you have a wonderful smile, and even though I'm communicating with you via the internet, I can feel that you're happy, which is wonderful. And I would certainly say that one of the main roles of a guru or a Diksha guru within the line of Prabhupada, one of their main roles is to lead you to Prabhupada, to take you to Prabhupada. And so I can imagine that Niranjana Swami would be delighted that you already have that connection with Prabhupada. His job is half done, so to speak. You don't need much encouragement because you're already self-encouraged. You're self-enthused. And yeah, there's a so I want to say that the other thing I want to say is that you talked about um twice during uh twice just now you mentioned the word offensive or to be offended. And unfortunately, I've seen this a lot, particularly within ISKCON. A lot of leaders use the word, oh, you can't ask that because it's offensive, or you can't say that because it's offensive. I produced a funny video about 2 years ago about this because I've worked with lots of different types of people in my life, in the business world, in the charity world, in the voluntary world. And then I met the Hare Krishnas, and I've never met a group of people that get offended so easily. Okay. Okay. And I produced a podcast about a year and a half ago. It was a wonderful podcast. And after it was published, I was then contacted to ask, can I take the podcast down because somebody is offended by it? I said, no, I'm not going to take it down because someone else is offended by it. This is, I mean, this is a democracy. You're allowed to have different views. If people were offended by some of the things that I did, I would never get up in the morning, you know. So I just made a funny film about it. It had thousands of views because people within the Hare Krishna movement get very offended very easily. And I don't understand why. Become a bit more thick-skinned. This is this is the material world. Things are tough. Everyone has to toughen up. So, thousands of us have had the same experience as you that we can't ask a guru a question because it's offensive. And one of the things I find sad is that people second guess Prabhupada. They say, "Oh, Prabhupada will be offended by that." And actually, there's no evidence for that at all. There's nothing in Prabhupada's books or letters that suggests he'll be offended by that at all. And actually, Prabhupada was so used to having really difficult questions, and he just took them because he wanted to teach and guide. And he was teaching and guiding these young Westerners that were full of sin and love drinking and smoking. Of course they were going to ask weird questions, but he said ask any question you want.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
you have
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
Now I was thinking like, my service more and more is like to mentor a young woman, or woman, not young necessarily. Some are coming young in Krishna consciousness, let's say. And, often I love tough question. I really love tough question. Like, oh, Prabhupada said women are less intelligent. Let's discuss that. Also, I love tough question. It's just, I think it's so stimulating to be challenged by question. And one feedback we receive regularly is that people coming from Christianity or other spiritual group say there's no space for question. And I say yes, and us, it's the opposite. Atato Brahma Vigyasa. Like the all Krishna consciousness, everything about what we do in Bhakti Yoga is driven by question. Arjuna's questions driving the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's doubts driving Bhagavad Gita. Let's celebrate doubts. They allow us to grow spiritually. So, of course, in the 80s and 90s, there was so much taboo about so many things. And, Srila Prabhupada's movement really transformed into a cult in so many ways. And, and lost that beauty, the beauty of no, there is no question. Of course, when I start reading, like when I start my reading groups with the women, the ladies, I always say we have no ground rule here. The only ground rule here is respect. And I said, in a container of respect, then everything can be addressed. In a container of respect, I can express my disagreement. I can express, well, Srila Prabhupada says that here, but I'm rubbed the wrong way by it. There's, in a container of respect, there is no more taboo. Everything can be expressed. And that's so much Trinadapi Sunichena. It's about, like learning to respect. And in that container, we can address every topic freely.
Thank you. I think you and I could talk all day. It's yeah, it's wonderful. I'm sure that we could probably do another podcast as well in the future about what you teach in more detail. Um, but this does lead us nicely on to the next question. I would love to talk now about the Bhakti Yoga Retreats, which is a project that you run. It's an initiative that you run. What is it, and what inspired you to set it up?
Okay. It's tough question because what is it and what's, like it's evolving. It's evolving. I was chanting japa maybe in 2015, something like that. And I was really fully engaged. At that time, I was facilitating personal development courses. I'm the co-founder of Salvatore Institute. I was having morning program at my house. I was doing full-time transformative coaching with individual. So I was fully like there was no scarcity of services. But then I would chant, and again, that website was coming to me, the Bhakti Yoga Retreat website. And I listened, and I decided, okay, I'm going to put it out. I don't know what will happen, but I'm going to put it out. And I did. And even if the banner of the homepage, it came to my mind. I'm not a designer or anything. Everything came. So I decided, okay, I'm going to do it. I found some people to help me write what came, what came up. And then here was the Bhakti Yoga Retreat. And at origin, it was like a place for people, because I'm really, how to this, I'm really focused on sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti is like the core foundation of what I want to give to the world, what I want people to get, that by sadhana bhakti, we elevate ourselves, and then everything else comes from that. So I want, and I feel so much joy chanting. I feel so much joy reading, that I want people to also experience that joy. So I created the Bhakti Yoga Retreat that as a website, and there was 3 entrants, like people who are completely new to Bhakti. They can come, they are going to be received and guided. People who are like, lukewarm, doing some Bhakti Yoga, but don't have a strong sadhana, they can come and we can help them to establish a sadhana. And then people who maybe have lost touch, sometimes devotees, they come, they're brahmacharini, and then they get grihastha, and then the test for spiritual life kind of become like lost or diluted by life demand. So I wanted to create a space for people to reconnect with that enthusiasm for Krishna consciousness. So I put it out at that time. And then people will come. Once in a while, people will come for retreat. And then people started coming and living with me. I have regular people since 2009. I have people staying with me 7 months, 3 months, 1 year, 2 years. They stay with me. Usually when they come live with me, I require, like a temple, that people who live with me, they agree to chant at least 16 rounds a day and follow the four-legged principle. It's not about a rant, it's not about anything, but there is an agreement. When you want to come and live with me, that's what you agree to. But if you come for a retreat, let's say a week retreat or 2 weeks or 1 day or 3 days, then I meet you where you are at. And we are going to find what fits you and what a way to move forward to experience even more Krishna consciousness. So that's what's the beginning. And then my life really had a very U-turn twist in 2021 when I got diagnosed with cancer. And it's important for me to speak about it because there was life before cancer and life after cancer, because it was really a demarcation. So before cancer, I was really involved personal development, having a lot of clients, doing Bhakti Yoga programs online in my house, being part of a community, being part of a institute, Sadvatova Institute. I'm the co-founder, so I was really identifying with that. And then I was diagnosed with cancer, and as soon as I started treatment, I was incapacitated. I went to a place of being like vegetable. I received chemo and radiation at the same time. It was extremely hellish. I remember being in my bed and thinking, I don't think the hellish planet can be worse than that. I was really feeling like that. I was feeling like I'm cursed, I'm in hell. But somehow or other, something very magical happened. Is that even so, it was like an achievement to take a shower every day. I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink. Every day I was driving to receive radiation. I had chemo pumping day and night in my system. Anyway, even so, life was so hellish like that. By the mercy of the Lord, and I'm not saying it cheaply, it's completely my experience. I chanted at least 16 rounds every day, the whole time. And It was very, like, I don't know. The moment I was chanting, somehow everything will be still and stop, like that. But the rest of the time, it was like being deeply autistic. Anything was overstimulating, the light, the people. I was like that. So of course, I didn't continue to do what I was doing before. I wasn't coaching. I was doing seminar. I wasn't doing anything. And then the cancer was really the tip of the iceberg in reality. For 3 years, my life became really hellish in many ways. Interpersonally, the thing I mattered the most in my life were taken away. I felt ripped apart. Like everything was taken away from me, like every single thing. And for the first time in my life, I experienced a desire to kill myself. I never experienced being suicidal before. And I really experienced that I had high, like really feeling like high like a kite in spiritual energy, or low. There was no human being in me. I couldn't live on a human stratum. I was either high in spiritual energy or completely down in a darkness, wanted to kill myself. That's what was happening for about 2 years and a half, trying to fix it, but there was nothing to fix. I could see like Krishna was storing me away and taking everything from me, but I was resisting it. And what was creating the most pain was the resistance, because that's what creates pain in our life. It's not so much what's happening, but our attachment to have something else happening than what's happening. But as soon as I surrendered, understood, and things started to change, and I didn't go back to my previous life before cancer. And I just took care of myself, started to do a lot of healing, different modality than the modality I was using before on myself, and feeling a lot of detachment happening, a lot of renunciation, detachment happening on their own. And in 2022, I went to Denver and I met a young woman. Like I said, I have a lot of Bhakti coming in my life, a young woman throughout my spiritual life. So that young woman, maybe you know her, she's quite famous on internet. Her name is Bhakti Amanda. She have like 20,000 followers on Instagram. So many of her videos have 250,000 views. Anyway, so I met her and kind of, I think she wanted me to be her mentor in spiritual life. And she came and moved with me in October last year. And I was like, okay, that's my service. And the year before also I had another Bhakti staying with me. But when Amanda moved with me, it felt like Krishna, like that was my service. I was the temple president, the temple commander, the head cook, the head pujari, and I was supposed to take care of that Bhakti. That was very clear. And I love taking care of new devotees, because what I give them is, we focus on your sadhana. My role is not to engage you in busyness. My role is to make sure that your sadhana is strong. And of course, if your sadhana is strong, you're going to do a lot of service. Instead of the opposite, do service and squeeze your sadhana there and there if you can. But nobody's really invested in that. So I invest myself 100% when I mentor people. I invest myself in protecting their sadhana. So I did that, and then I wanted back in Amanda at the time. She had a full-time job online, and I said, well, like, okay, as you do the sadhana, you have a full-time job. I want you to have a project. I want you to have a project. And at the time, in her mind, for the last 2 years, when she did whatever she did, you can interview her. It's a good person to interview. At the time, she said, for the last 2 years, I wanted to preach on the internet. And then she started Instagram account. And within few weeks, there was one video that went viral, 250,000 views. And from that, we were told, someone said, why don't you do a community? Why don't you start a community? And so we started a WhatsApp community that's built up into now WhatsApp. We have left WhatsApp and we have a virtual ashram. It's a place like Facebook, a social media space where it's all women. That's, some practice Krishna consciousness for a long time. Some, they came to Krishna consciousness not so long ago. Some are completely brand new to Krishna consciousness. Some are practicing but never met a devotee, never spoke to a devotee. This is fascinating. And some are 13-year-old and they practice Krishna consciousness without the knowledge of their parents. They are born in India, some Hindu family. It's so fascinating. We just put ourselves out there, and so many women are coming to us, and they all want to know about Krishna, and they all want to be mentored in Krishna consciousness. So that's our ashram. It's a virtual space like Facebook. We have different channel. The channel I'm really most involved in is called spiritual coaching, because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said the best way to support people in spiritual life is by one-on-one coaching. So I love that. So I do spiritual group coaching where the ladies come together, they ask questions, they are encouraged to ask questions, any question they want, no matter how taboo they are, no matter how controversial they are. Bring it on, we are happy. We have a channel to share a recipe, also how to offer Krishna, how to cook, how to offer to Krishna. We have different channel, Kirtan channel, altar channel, we have service channel. And then right now we opened our ashram in January and we have 97 members.
Wow, it's amazing.
All women, not all Westerners. Like, we have a lot of Indian young. This is really fabulous. Like Prabhupada, I heard in a class, he said a lot of my disciples will take birth in India. And in our ashram, we see so many teenagers and they don't want the Western way. Their parents are pushing them to engineering or they're pushing them to succeed at school and succeed in a Western way. But they want Prabhupada and they want Krishna consciousness. And they're young, like teenagers. But they're so sincere and pure. But at the same time, it's almost obvious that in their previous lives, they were devotees in the West. Because they also have attraction of their senses that's not common for a young girl living in, being born in India. And they have so much attraction for Srila Prabhupada's movement. And to hear their story, how Krishna or Prabhupada came to them when they were in distress. Like when people enroll in our ashram, we have a questionnaire. And so they are asked, what was a turning point for a spiritual life. And again, one response, I would say 70% of the time, is that I was in a dark place and then Krishna came to me.
Mm.
This is, it's not something we can make up. Srila Prabhupada is still canvassing the earth. He is constantly canvassing the earth to find the sincere souls, and then he sends them where they are going to be received. They send them in a place where it's a match for them.
First thing I want to say is I'm pleased that you're still here. I'm pleased to hear that you I hope have recovered from cancer. Um uh, Both of my grandparents passed away through cancer. My mother's parents, and I was a teenager at the time. They died within 3 years of each other, and I saw just how much pain they went through, so much physical suffering they went through. So I'm del on a very material level, I'm delighted that you're still here. And Krishna has kept you here for a reason. There's a reason you're still here because you are still needed in this lifetime to serve these young women, um, to guide them, to coach them. And I have no doubt that Prabhupada is using you and your devotion to him and your dedication to him. He's using you to help these women who need a female guide. I mean, of course, we need female leaders in the Hare Krishna movement. You know, it's a no-brainer, really. We need we need women in roles of authority everywhere, in my opinion, and it's wonderful that you're 97 women. That's amazing, and you only started in January. It's fantastic. I was looking through your website the other day in preparation for our conversation today, and there's a statement that I really like, which I'm going to read out, and then I'll ask you a question about it. So the statement is, in terms of Bhakti Yoga retreats, my intention is to create a safe, sacred space for your natural self to radiate, for you to experience healing, discovery, wonder, and transcendental adventure. I love that statement. So my questions to you are, why is offering this space important? And is this kind of space needed in the global Bhakti community?
Okay. Um, there is a saying in personal development that people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And a lot of people coming to spiritual life, it's emotional and sentimental. It's very rarely philosophical or even very rarely theological. It's very depending on the person they meet. So for us to create a safe and sacred space for people to be safe is, it's part of bhakti. Bhakti means love. To create a space where people feel loved. In fact, my ideal situation right now will be to be in a community in nature, not too far from a city because I like to go on book distribution, but be in nature and to really create a Prabhupada oasis, a Prabhupada village, a place where people, as soon as they enter that place and meet a devotee, they want to stay and spend their whole lives there. Not because they understand the philosophy, not because they understand the theology or anything, but because they have an experience. I had an experience with Srila Prabhupada, an experience that's what people follow. So for me, I want to create that experience. I want people to feel loved, received, encouraged. And when I say healing, I mean the disease of our heart is a material disease. And we are being healed. We are being healed by God, by Krishna, like Christ was healing. And we are being healed physically, emotionally, energetically speaking, for ourselves, the soul, to shine. For we are, eternal part and parcel of Krishna. And we are amazing. We are amazing. We are told in the Bhagavad Gita, we are amazing. So let's, create a space and an experience for people to feel amazing. Just today, I received a letter from one of the women in our ashram, and she's, older. She has 3 children. Her husband doesn't know anything about Krishna or children either. And she was sharing with me that she was part of different group before, a personal group. And she said it felt like your ashram is so intimidating because there is no sense of ego. Like she said, the previous, it was all about everybody tried to shine over others. But in our ashram, we try to make everybody shine and not us. And because everyone is amazing. So to be able to find the spark. And yeah, so did I respond to your question?
Did you responded wonderfully? Yeah, you responded wonderfully. Thank you for that. And um, here at the Hare Krishna Project, we don't run an ashram in the way that you do, but we do provide. I mean, we're based in the UK, but people from all over the world contact us. And very similar to you, we try and provide support to devotees in terms of providing them with a safe space so they can contact us and they can ask us any question they want. And it doesn't matter how bizarre it is, we will give an answer or we will try and get an answer for them without judgment, without thinking that they're weird or they're bizarre in any way, because Prabhupada said, and I say this all the time, but Prabhupada said he wanted this movement to be a house for the whole world, and everybody in the whole world is different. I mean, imagine how boring it would be if we were all the same. It'd be just
Mhm.
quite dull. And so we have to accept that we're all different. Everyone's different. People have different political views. People have different ideological views. People have different strengths and weaknesses. Um, some people are in this life male, some are female, some are other. Um, we're all different. People have different sexual preferences. People have different desires about wanting to live in the world and earn money, and other people are not interested in that at all, and they want to come and live in an ashram. And we all have to accept that we all have to try and include all of these people in a safe space where they can be themselves. Um, Prabhupada said very clearly, time and time again, that Krishna consciousness wasn't about following rules. It was about adding Krishna to your life. Just add Krishna to your life. And I can see that you're doing that with your students. You know, you're guiding them, you're showing them how to add Krishna to their lives. It's wonderful. Um, okay. Do you want
I
to
like that
respond?
quote from Srila Prabhupada when he said like that he built a house in which the whole world can live.
Yeah.
So he built a house in which the whole world can live, and yeah, it's our responsibility to furnish this house.
Yeah, and a lot of so what you're providing, that safe space is so important. And my personal view, based on what I've seen and what I've experienced, is that not within the Bhakti community, not enough safe spaces exist yet. We still need more. Um, a lot of people, a lot of devotees will be scarred from traumatic experiences around authoritarian leadership, about being told that you're being offensive, you know, about having to conform to doing things that they just don't want to do. It's not part of their nature or whatever. So I want to see more of what you're providing. And I hope through listening to today's podcast, I hope that lots of things will happen, but two particular things is I hope that women will get in touch with you. I'll put your website details, and I hope that other women, mature women from other parts of the world, feel inspired by Malini, by inspired by you. Wow, we could do something here in Scotland or in Denmark, um, or in wherever, Korea. I don't know. Um, so yeah. I want to ask a question. I know you've talked about this on the internet, but I wanted to ask about this. So I'm really delighted that you've survived cancer. That's wonderful. But you've still made a decision to keep your hair short. And
Yeah.
you're very um, recognizable by your appearance.
Yeah.
And at the start of this conversation, you mentioned one word that stuck in my head. You mentioned the word none.
Mhm.
And I've been thinking about that word the whole time and seeing your appearance. So, can you tell us a bit about why you've chosen to keep your hair shaved?
Yeah. Um, one of the girl in our ashram, a young Indian woman, she said, Mother Malini, you have your head shaved. I wonder if that's what Srila Prabhupada wants us to do. And so I wrote a really nice response. You can find it on my Facebook account. I'm going to share the story. So I'm going to share a long response if you don't mind.
Yeah,
I tend
please,
to uh,
please,
I tend to
please.
have long response to your short question. But anyway, when I turned 50, when I turned around 50, I I was really meditating a lot on what Srila Prabhupada said about that specific age and entering Vanaprastha because I take seriously the entire process. So when I turned 50, I thought in my mind that when I will turn 60, I will have short hair. I will just have short hair. I'm not married. And Srila Prabhupada say, yeah, widows should have short hair and look very ugly. So I say, okay, I'm going to cut my hair when Mother Jadurani told me that, by the way. um, I'm going to cut my hair when I turn 60. And then I'm born in January. And the Western 59 year, which is a Eastern 60 years birthday, a few days before my birthday, I got diagnosed with cancer. And I thought, that's interesting. And before starting chemo and radiation, because I knew I will lose my hair, I buzzed my head. And I thought, okay, Krishna, I am around my 60th birthday. And I had decided that I will cut my hair short. And I can see that you decided to shave my head. And so I took it as a samskar. And that's why I keep my head shaved,
Mm.
because that's samskar of a wink, Krishna winking. I heard you. You wanted
Mm.
to cut your hair at 60. I have another plan for you. Similar but different. I'm going to shave your head. So I took it as a samskar. I'm not attached. If I sense that Krishna wants something else from me, I will do it. But I have no indication of that. And something that's very interesting in terms of none. I love going on book distribution. And when I go on book distribution with my shaved head, I always go with sari and tilak. People are very, very attracted, so attracted. I found that since my head is shaved, like it's easier to distribute books. I think because maybe people think I am a Buddhist monk, maybe
Mm.
it's
Mm.
possible.
Yeah.
But it seems that it put people at ease for some reason that I don't understand. So that's having a confirmation, like keep it, if it helps for your preaching, and I have no indication to not do it. It's practical, every 10 days. I shave my head. I don't need to work every morning. When you're a woman, every morning you need to do something with your hair. But even when you have short hair, you need to kind of cut it properly for it to fall properly. So that's very practical. I get up in the morning. I don't need to look at the mirror. I don't need to do anything. It's nice. It's nice. And for me, it's a samskar. And that's the reason I keep. And I also told that young lady who asked me, said, no, there is no place Srila Prabhupada says that women should shave their head. He said that, widows will have short hair. So I shared that because I don't want people to think that they need to do what I'm doing or anything. Or it's not even fashion for me. It's not even a statement. It's just an intimate wink from Krishna.
Well, Krishna, as most of us will know, Krishna has a sense of humor,
Yeah.
and Krishna plays tricks on us. And
Mhm.
okay, you want something? He's done that with me a number of times on Narada. You want something? Okay, you can have it, but you'll have it in my way. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the Srimad Bhagavatam tells us so many stories about Krishna, having a sense of humor. It's unreal. Um, but I was going to say you give the appearance of being a Buddhist nun, and often, particularly, I was talking with somebody about Buddhism the other day. Buddhism is still one of those religions where people have a lot of respect for Buddhists. That people think of Buddhists as peaceful people, of kind people, a non-violent, vegetarian, ahimsa. So I can tell that in the Western world, people thinking you're a Buddhist nun is a good thing. I think. I remember I went to Vrindavan. The first time I went to Vrindavan was 2013, I think. And I don't remember much about the trip, but I remember seeing a lady in the temple with a shaved head. Yeah, it wouldn't have been you. Of course, it wouldn't have been you, but it stood out for me, and I thought, wow, good on you. You've shaved your hair off. You've showed dedication to the cause. I was very impressed, sh by her and her appearance. Um, and also, the other thing I want to say on this particular issue is that we can see Prabhupada's earthly ministry. That's a Christian word, his ministry. But if you look at Prabhupada's ministry, his time on earth, you can see that he talked a lot about time, place, and circumstance and applying Gaudiya Vaishnavism to people's lives based on time, place, and circumstance. Different things work for different people. And Prabhupada did make a lot of statements about appearance and dress code. Um, but he also made different statements in other times about that might appear to be contradictory about dress code. So it's always important, in my opinion, to understand Prabhupada's statements contextually. Who was he talking to? What was the context? And I feel like I've been around the movement for 20 years, but I still feel like I'm the new guy and I'm still like low of the low. But the impression I get from reading Prabhupada's books, from listening to his lectures, is that Prabhupada just wanted us to spread Krishna consciousness. And he wanted us to try new things and take chances and take risks. And I remember the example of when the six, well, there were seven because one was a baby, six devotees came from the USA in 1968 to London.
Mhm.
So they were Grihastas. So really, the dress code is they should have been wearing white. But actually, to get people's attention, they were wearing saffron. They went into the street and the men were wearing saffron. And Prabhupada didn't tell them not to because they were just, oh, we're trying it to get people's attention because the saffron's a nice color. So they were just trying something different to get people's attention, you know. So Krishna consciousness is about trying new things, taking risks, and having fun. I mean, having fun. Who wants to join a boring religion? I mean, isn't most people think, I'm going to give you say one more thing before I ask you the next question. About 10 years ago, I was in Turkey visiting a friend of mine who wasn't a devotee, but we were friends from school. And he was dating this Muslim girl, Muslim woman. And she came round to the flat to meet me, and I was showing them this Rath Yatra festival on my iPad, a video. And people were dancing, people were chanting, people were singing. And she said, that can't be religion because they're having too much fun. That just can't be a religion, you know? And it,
Yeah, we have so much fun.
yeah, it kind of stuck in my head. Okay, so just two more questions. I always kind of ask most guests these questions. So the first one is, what are your thoughts on the current condition? It sounds like a medical thing, doesn't it? What are your thoughts on the current condition of the worldwide Hare Krishna movement?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by Hare Krishna movements. Like, does
Hmm.
it include the Sri Vaishnav? Does it include Lord Chaitanya's descendants, all the branches? Like,
So
yeah, I
for
will not
me,
know how to respond to that question without like really defining the terms.
so for me, the Hare Krishna movement is everyone and all things and all sanghas and all mats that can trace their lineage or their heritage back to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Mm-hmm. So Gaudiya Vaishnavism,
Basically Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Um,
global Gaudiya
yeah,
Vaishnavism.
yeah.
Um, my true belief is that Gaudiya Vaishnavism is in the hand of Srila Prabhupada, and that Srila Prabhupada is constantly, making things happen, and that there is different branches to the trees, there is different experience of the tree, and all of them has their place. And um, that's I don't know if you saw Mother Govinda's drawing or painting. Did you see that painting where Srila Prabhupada is on a beautiful Vyasa and it is in the sky? And then you have all the people of the earth, and you can see their suffering. And they are just turned to Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada, like that. And it doesn't mean that there is no other leaders in the Gaudiya Math or in ISKCON or wherever. But that's, Srila Prabhupada, very, very specific, from my experience, position, like the Prabhu, where all the other Prabhu, the master, at whose feet all other master bow down. And that image is in my mind in responding to your question. It's a dream that Mother Govinda had after Prabhupada departed. And you see Srila Prabhupada in that Vyasa, and you see the earth and all the people suffering, the suffering people of the earth, kind of reaching out. And how Srila Prabhupada is going to respond to each of them is going to look in different ways on our level, like that. So and I do believe that things are exactly where they are supposed to be. No mistake in the universe. And maybe I don't like them at the moment, like I didn't like the cancer, but I can say, wow, I'm so grateful for the cancer. I have no other emotion connected with the cancer. I have no other emotion than gratitude. So I don't know, maybe there is some cancer there and there, but I do trust that as a whole, the movement is moving forward, that the movement is moving. Yeah. And that picture
I
is very graphic for me for responding to your question, if you have seen that picture.
I have, and I love asking this question if I get the chance, because lots of devotees respond in different ways. So some respond with, "Oh, it's terrible. The movement's terrible. No, this," and others give a much more neutral answer, and others give a more positive answer, like yourself. Um, and actually, one sannyasi based in South America. His name's Mahavir Swami. He's in the line of Narayan Maharaj, and he was in the UK about 2 months ago. And I asked him the same question face to face, and his answer was pretty much the same as yours, around that everything's just taking its natural course. Everyone's here that needs to be here. Lord Krishna is in control, and all of these souls are appearing. The Sankirtan movement will always be here. And Krishna provides or arranges for all these souls to be here according to who needs to be here. Thank you for sharing that. You and I are both in this life Western bodied. We both appeared in Europe, which Prabhupada said there was some culture in Europe. In beautiful France, I'm from a city called Bath, which is in the south of England, also very historical. So you and I in this life have appeared in Western bodies, and during our lifetimes, we have made the decision to follow this philosophy of Bhakti Yoga because we find it so fascinating and life-saving and enchanting. We've chosen not to necessarily follow Catholicism or Protestantism or whatever. So we believe that this philosophy is rich, and it people need to share it, to follow it. In your opinion, how can we attract more Western people to the path of bhakti?
Hmm. Um, I think my response will come from a slightly different angle.
Yeah.
Like Sanatan Dharma is serving and glorifying the Lord. So first, one part of my response is like Srila Prabhupada clearly tell us that purity is a force, to act from a place of purity. And what is Sanatan Dharma? I remember for many years, maybe it was over a period of at least 12 years, I was in contact with a Christian lady, like one of the Christianity. In America, there's so many branches of Christianity. And this woman I knew will never chant Hare Krishna. She was really Christian and really attached to her identity as a Christian. Still, she was very attracted to me. And she even came to Bhakti Yoga Retreat, at the Bhakti Yoga Retreat. And what she learned at the Bhakti Yoga Retreat is to cook for Lord Jesus Christ and offer her food. What she learned at the Bhakti Yoga Retreat is to have a sadhana, like do something in the morning, read the Bible, chant the name of the Lord. What she learned at the Bhakti Yoga Retreat is to get an harmonium. She have an harmonium now. So is she like, will she enter in what you're thinking? Because I don't see, Bhakti Yoga as sectarian. It's like, no, if we are Brahman, we support each person to follow their path towards Sanatana Dharma, towards a path that's eternal. So that person, for example, yeah, she's not chanting Hare Krishna. She's vegetarian. When she cooks, she offers to a picture of Lord Jesus Christ. She has now every day a sadhana, meaning she get up in the morning and chant the name of the Lord, and she read the Bible, and I've learned harmonium. I teach her a little bit of harmonium. She chant hymns. So I don't know. I believe this. Lord Chaitanya tells us to be gurus, and I take that very, very seriously, because how many orders does God give us? Not so many in reality. And one order he gave us is to be a guru in our land. So we need to be gurus and take this very seriously. And in a sense, the guru culture, I will call it culture, the guru culture, I think is preventing that guruship to really fully happen. That guruship of each person who have received Krishna consciousness, to whatever level they are able to be a guru. And being a guru means two things. It means to be able to build trust with people, meet people where they're at and build trust. And when that trust is built, to give them alternate perspective on whatever beliefs they have, that gives them Siddhanta, the conclusion of the Vedas. For example, in the last 3 months, there is 2 Mormon boys that are visiting me, and they are so eager to come and visit me. And before they come, they usually give me a passage of the Mormon book to read. So I read it, and then they come, and usually they ask me, "Do you have any question?" And usually I tell them, "Well, here is what I understand." And when I share, I give them a Bhagavatam class based on the Mormon book. And I can see they want to come back. I have my tilak, I have my saris. You can see I'm not going to become a Mormon. And I have no idea why they come back. But they come back because they can understand that spiritual life is universal. Spiritual life need to be universal and can only be universal. And we are fortunate that, Srila Prabhupada often he said, if you have a name for God, chant that. If you don't have a name, take Krishna. I'm telling you, Krishna means the most attractive one. Why don't you take that name if you don't have any? So if you have a name, chant your name. But if you don't have any, follow. Just chant Hare Krishna. And thus, I believe purity is the force to respond to your question and to come out of any sectarism while being very strict with, we have a path, we have a process, we have a process of self-realization, a process of God realization. We know the process, we know it works. By hearing about God, then we chant about God. And the more we hear, the more we develop attraction for God. And then there is activities that are not conducive, like those Mormon boys. one of the last, after building trust, I did speak about meat eating, for example. They eat meat, but they are special. They spend 2 years of their life as missionary, leaving everything behind and being sent to Florida, like of all places. They are not in an exotic place. They are not, some of their friends are in Philippines or Africa. They were sent in Florida. Terrible, in the middle of summer. It's a terrible place to be, outside, knocking on door. So they are special. And, because they felt accepted, recognized, seen for their austerity that they are doing for God, then they were able to hear. And what they were hearing from me is support of what they were doing and then adding whatever was missing. And then when we spoke about meat eating, they were ready to receive. And they say, yeah, we eat meat. But they also found a place in the book of the moment that say, as much as possible, minimize eating meat because it's sinful.
Mm. Mm.
So that's it, like supporting people to hear and chant about God, whatever language they use, whatever names they have for God, and then allow people to understand how sinful activity is like putting water on a fire and finding words to help them understand that they will relate to, like that. Did I respond to your question?
It's a fantastic response, and possibly one of the best responses that I've ever received. I love the fact how you pointed out that getting Westerners to follow Bhakti Yoga isn't necessarily about Westerners converting to Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Prabhupada said, if you're a Christian, then read the Bible. If you're a Muslim, then be the Quran. Chant any name of God. Any name of God. And thank you for reminding us of that. And I'm really encouraged by the example of the Christian lady, and that
Mm-hmm.
you helped her to be closer to Jesus.
Yeah, to develop a sadhana, to
Yeah.
develop, because the church wasn't, she loved her church, she's very dedicated to her church, but her church wasn't giving her the food she was looking for.
Mm,
We, we gave her the food she was looking for. We guided her, and now she has sadhana. She get up in the morning, she does prayer, the 9 process of devotional service.
mm,
Okay, she doesn't have that in her scripture, but she was really happy to hear about the
mm.
9 process of devotional service.
Yeah. 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 And then I was just, as you were saying that, I was thinking about being a Christian and practicing Bhakti Yoga. I mean, for me, Bhakti Yoga is well, not for me, for everybody. Bhakti Yoga is a spiritual process. It's a
Mhm.
spiritual process that enables us to connect with uh, the Lord, a personal God, and it helps us to, it shows us to serve Him, to have a loving relationship with Him by being selfless, by being more God conscious or Krishna conscious and less self-conscious. That kind of loving devotional relationship. So, and a lot of Christian groups will practice Bhakti Yoga, but they're not aware that they don't call it Bhakti Yoga. Um, and also, when you were talking, for some reason, the Sufis came into my head. So Sufis are a branch of Islam who I would say practice Bhakti Yoga. They're dancing in kirtan. They're living a very, I hope, an almost sattvic life. I'm not sure if they're vegetarian or not, but they're being very devotional to Allah, the one God. So Bhakti Yoga exists in all traditions. It's just not called Bhakti Yoga.
Prabhupada said, what we are practicing is a science. It's a science. There's a hypothesis, we are servant of God, and then there is, like there is a science to it. So we
Mm,
give that science. So no, it's not about converting. Converting is temporary. Srila Prabhupada is temporary. What's the point of doing that? You're part of my group, and just it's not spiritual. It's not spiritual. Spiritual is like seeing the soul, like all those spirit souls that like um, George Harrison in our introduction. All you need is love, and everybody is looking for Krishna. So everybody is looking for Krishna. There is no exception. There is no exception to that. So how we support people, bring Brahmans, that Prabhupada wanted a society of Brahmans, is to help people to little by little, step out of animal life to be more human, and from our human life to come to a place of detaching from human conditioning. And that's universal. It's a universal science.
And I think that's a fascinating note to end on. Uh, Believe it or not, you and I have been talking for over 2 hours, but we've been recording this podcast for, yeah, well over 90 minutes. But it's been a fascinating conversation today. And I'm pleased that you were able to share your story, um, from sailing on the boat to turning up at the temple in Montreal to surviving cancer, to being devoted to Prabhupada, from now running a worldwide global Bhakti Yoga Retreat program for women. Your story is fantastic. It's an inspiration. And maybe I'll come back as a woman in the next life to come to your ashram. Um, we'll see. So what's going to happen? So Malini, I'm going to say goodbye to the viewers at home. If you just stay on the line, stay in the room. And what I'm going to do, Malini, is with this podcast, I'm going to put your website link so people can see your website. It's a fantastic website, by the way. I find it very easy to navigate around and view things, and very easy to read, and um, yeah, and I'm sure that you and I are going to be in touch more in the future. We have similar interests, which is great. I'm very grateful, hugely grateful to Malini for being our guest on this week's podcast, episode 173, the podcast that wasn't meant to go past 10. But episode 173, unbelievable. I'm grateful to her for sharing her story, which I know many of you will find inspiring, um, on so many levels, on so many levels. Um, so a big thank you to her. Do not forget, if you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button so you can be kept updated about future podcasts and video productions from the Hare Krishna Project. And or if you're watching this on Facebook, which is the other way you can watch these podcasts. If you haven't already, please do like or follow the Hare Krishna Project Facebook page so you can be kept updated about what we're doing here at the Hare Krishna Project. And if you want to get in touch with Molini, hopefully you can do that through her website. It's very easy to use, but also I can put you in touch with her as well. And often this does happen, Molini. People do get in touch with the guest after they've been on the Hare Krishna Project podcast. So I hope the same is for you as well. So a big thank you to everyone for tuning in. And until next week, I'll see you all soon. Thank you. Hare Krishna.